Good day and welcome to Berlita's Everything in Between podcast. I am the show host, Berlita Odom. And as always, I am so thankful for those of you who continue to take time out of your busy schedules to take a moment to listen to the episodes that I continue to publish. As some of you may know, September is National Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, so I definitely wanted to take some time to speak to this subject or speak on this subject. I have a very close family member who sustained a spinal cord injury many years ago, and he has decided to share his story. And so I hope you guys will welcome my very first podcast guest, Mr. James Odom. If you know James, then you are aware that he did suffer a spinal cord injury many years ago and has gone through the steps and taken the steps necessary to regain his independence. So before we continue on, I just want you guys to welcome James to my podcast as my first guest. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So tell the people about, what happened to you. And of course, obviously I was there. We were married at the time. So I'll be able to kind of, talk and share some things as well. But how old were you when you suffered your injury?
I was 30 years old.
All right. So what happened?
What caused my injury was a car wreck that I was involved in.
Okay. Do you remember when you were first told or when you first found out that you were paralyzed and couldn't walk?
Oh, yes. When I was in the hospital, I woke up and I tried to get up out the bed, but the nurses ran in there and said that you've been in an accident and you can't walk.
Do you remember how you felt?
Everything was going through my head, like, how will I live?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me to kind of fill in a little bit of it, I know that you were actually in ICU for 3 weeks on life support. Those first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we really did not know if you were going to even survive at all. I just remember being in the hospital because literally I was there like every day. Although you were in ICU, those initial couple of weeks, with ICU patients, you can't just sit there at their bedside like a regular room. There are visiting hours. So I would go to the hospital, sit there all day just to have those moments, during the visitation, which were just brief moments. And then once visitation was over, I'd go sit back in the lobby and sit there for more hours until the next visitation was open to go in to see you. And I remember I could definitely tell, obviously, you were just didn't know what you were going to do. This is even when you were in ICU and you weren't as sedated as you had been before. I could tell you really just didn't know what you were going to do. Is that what you were thinking at the time?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? How are you going to live your life or whatever?
Yes, all of it. I didn't know. I didn't know. I knew it was going to be hard.
Right.
I wouldn't be like I used to be.
Right, definitely. Yeah. They call it a catastrophic injury because it is definitely a catastrophe. It is something that changes and impacts and affects your entire life. Every single thing from family to career to even spiritually, because I'm sure, many people will question God. Do you ever remember going through a period where you were angry at God?
No.
Never?
I never was angry.
Now, a lot of people might hear you say that and not believe it.
Yeah, I know. But things happen always, and I would never question God. I mean, why question someone who's helped me?
So, were you ever angry with yourself? Do you ever remember going through a period of time where you were mad at yourself?
Yeah.
Now, that's something I don't think you've ever told me.
Yeah, I was mad. I was mad at myself a lot,
Yeah. So not blaming God, you blamed
Blame
yourself.
myself.
I know that from just talking to you, you really don't remember the accident, itself, and you don't know what happened. But I think it's definitely natural. It's a natural process to kind of work through things and blame yourself for things, even if you don't even know what it was exactly that happened. But again, that's why I asked if you blame God, because some people actually will blame God for things as well and get angry at God. I remember on my side of things, I would like to say I wasn't angry with God, but I remember when years passed and I looked back on the situation, I was able to say, I think I was angry with God at some point, because I remember during that time, I did pray. I prayed for your life, I prayed for the kids, but it changed my praying pattern. It changed my praying habits. And I started kind of trying to figure things out on my own instead of relying on God, I think. I don't think I knew it at the time, but looking back on it, once we kind of got clear of the situation and got some years behind us, I look back on it and I think I did go through a period of being angry with God that it happened, because it changed everything. You know what I mean? It changed everything. And I remember just feeling a total loss of control. We like to think we have control over everything. We control if we want to go to school or not. We control whether or not what job we want. We control if we want to buy a house, if we want to get married, if we want to get divorced, if we want to have kids. We think about those things. But to be doing the things, everything, I remember thinking we're doing everything we're supposed to do. Yeah. Like we were doing really, really well. For a young black couple, we were doing really well. We had, just bought a house a couple years before. We had a new baby, because Nick was only like 8 months, I think, at the time. Jaden was 6. I think Christian was 13 when it happened. So, like, we were doing really well. And then that happened. And it's like, I just remember thinking, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. We're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, even though there are some, problems in the situation. And then this happens, and like your whole world turns upside down, literally. The people you think are going to be there for you are not. That's not to blame or fault anybody, but you would like to think that family would really surround you and be there and show up and support. And we didn't have a lot of family support. We had some, but it wasn't what I thought it would be. And maybe it's because people didn't know how to help.
The severity of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the severity of what was going on. Yeah, absolutely. But, and I've said this in other episodes of my podcast, when we were talking about grief and things like that. Sometimes it's not about what you say, it's just about being there. Family being there for you really does matter, even if you don't know what to say. Your presence is still needed. You said you blamed yourself. Are there times now, because this has been 14 years since, post, accident, and since your injury, do you still sometimes tend to blame yourself? Do you go back to that space and feel anger? No. So
I don't feel angry about the situation.
Is that something that's just recent, or did you stop blaming yourself years ago, or how?
Yeah, as time went along.
Yeah. And you started to adjust.
Yeah. Everything to be, you just got to keep moving.
Right. Absolutely. Well, so let's talk a little bit about your journey back. I know, obviously, that we know that you were at LSU hospital for about 2 months, ICU the first 3 weeks, and then you were moved to the regular room for some time. And let me go back and also say this. At the time you had your accident, I remember the head trauma doctor, when he came in to tell me that you were paralyzed, because I made it over to LSU. I was being told you were being life flighted to LSU. And when I made it over to Shreveport, when I got there, the head doctor, trauma doctor there, came out and spoke to me and told me that you were paralyzed, and that they were not sure if it was just temporary or if it was permanent, but that the next few hours, next couple of days would really be would really tell them a lot about whether this was going to be, a long-term injury. And he talked about all of the other injuries that you had sustained to your ribs, your sternum, your chest. And he said he had never seen anyone survive the trauma that you survived. That was unbelievable to hear. And so, even though I knew he said you were paralyzed, that just wasn't even a priority to me. The most important thing was you just surviving. So, how long did it take you to realize that being paralyzed was your new reality, and that you would need to live life as a paralyzed man?
It took me a long time to realize that, because I kept, I always have hope, and I still have hope. But until then, until it happens or whatever, I'm going to live my life, just learn how to do things as a paralyzed person.
Yeah. And I would say that definitely took you a period of adjustment.
Yeah.
If I think back on it, I would say I always marked that when you came home, it was pretty much a 2-year period for sure of you learning how to, care for yourself. Things as simple as cutting your own hair, because you have to have trunk stability to have both of your hands up and to cut your hair or to trim your beard or whatever. I would say, of course, I'm sure adjustment is really a lifelong thing when you really think about it. But
you have to keep on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I know, like, just for sure, the first 2 years after you came home from being in the hospital and rehab, just learning how to do the basic, everyday, what we call activities of daily living, grooming yourself and hygiene and things like that. It was an adjustment.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you went through your adjustment, but, I went through an adjustment just like the children did, from having an able-bodied husband, able-bodied father, to having someone who needed so much help, especially during that time. So what is something that you want people to know about being paralyzed?
Not to give up, keep pushing yourself.
Okay. Is there anything that kind of bothers you about how people treat you since you're paralyzed, or is everything, or do you just not have any complaints about how you're treated?
You can't worry about it. I mean,
Do you feel like people treat you like you're helpless, and does that bother you?
Yeah, they act like I can't close the door, or stuff like that, little stuff. What I can do, I want to do that. I want you to let me do what I can do, and I can do it.
How important is family support as you go through the adjustment period of being paralyzed, and as you go throughout life? How important was family support in the beginning, and is it still important?
Oh yeah, it's really important. Family support. With the more support you have from your family, the better off you will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, but for some people, it's unfortunate
they don't have it.
Yeah, they don't have that family support. Did you have that family support?
Oh, yeah. I had that support.
How so?
I had my wife and my children. That's all I had in the first couple months. Then as time went along, after that, more people start to help.
Why is family support needed?
Because you can't do everything yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs some help. You're just not gonna be able to do it. When it happens, you don't know what to do, Like me, I didn't know whether I was coming or going, really, for a while. And then as time goes along, you start to find out what helps, what helps you.
When you look back on the whole experience, like in the beginning, because obviously you're continuing to live through it now, but in the beginning, what are some of the moments that really stand out to you? Is there one particular moment or feeling or being in a certain place or understanding or realization? What are the moments or the words that you would use to summarize those first few months, the first couple of years?
Oh,
What's really sticks with you?
It was rough. You got to get pride out of there.
Oh yeah. Ooh, you said a thing right there.
You got to get pride.
And that was hard
out
for
of
you.
There. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it would be hard for anybody. You were such a healthy, active, strong man who had worked since you were just a teenager.
Yeah.
To go from being that person
then
to
not doing anything, being able to do anything.
Yeah.
You got to get pride out of there.
That's very, very good. So yeah, definitely, because you have to start relying on so many people to help you do things and figure things out, and
I mean, you just got to keep going.
I never give up.
Yeah. You got to keep going, and you know, like if you can't do it the first time, don't give up. Just continue to try to, you know, make little steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, just gotta, you know, take steps, man. You can't do it all. I mean.
Yeah. And nobody can.
Yeah,
that's the thing about it. We fool ourselves into thinking that if you're able-bodied, you can do it all. But nobody can do it all. We all need to have dependable, trustworthy people in our lives that can help us. Yeah, absolutely. I think we all get caught up in our physical ability to get things done, and we take it for granted. And then when something does happen, you realize you have to be more than just your physical abilities. Okay, so how did you make it through? What do you think helped you make it through the pain, the adjustment period? How did you make it through?
My immediate family, seeing my kids grow.
Absolutely.
And, you know, being there with my wife, talking to our kids, explaining the situations that I'm going through or that we're going through. You know, they helped a lot. And God, you know, God through all of it.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have made it without him, for sure. I definitely think that having, you know, the family, having me and the kids there kept you going. And of course, we are nowhere without God. But there is something special about you as well. Like, you've always been a very upbeat person. It's always been hard to get you down. You know what I mean? Like, you've always been determined. You've always been motivated to keep going. And I really don't remember one time. Literally, I don't remember one time throughout this process, which has been 14 years now, married and now divorced, but still family. I don't remember you ever being down on yourself. You may have been, and I know earlier in the interview, you mentioned how you were angry at yourself at different points, you know, in the beginning. And I think it did show itself in some ways. But just overall, though, you never stopped. You never stopped pushing. You still don't. You know what I'm saying? You still do everything that you can, and you want to do what you can. And so I think there's a lot to be said for your resiliency as an individual and your self-determination and your grit, because it matters. You know, this injury could happen to anyone, and not everyone is going to respond the way you did and the way you have. That I just want to say that to you and about you.
I appreciate it.
You are welcome. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your story. This month, being Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, you know, whatever you can say to help someone. I know that was what you were wanting to do.
That's all I want.
Absolutely. And there are people having spinal cord injuries, you know, every single day. And you were 30 when this happened, but there are teenagers who are getting injured on the football field, who are paralyzed at 15 and 16 and having to live the rest of their life that way and figure things out. And there's a lot of new advancements out there. I know the TIER program in the Houston area, something that you considered going to when you were first injured, but you know, at the time you were just like, you didn't want to be that far away from your family. And I, of course, understood that, because, you know, we'd all been through so much. We didn't want you far away, you know, which, you know, 3.5 hours, but still, you know, we wanted to be able to go see you easily, and the kids were in school. So, but the TIER Rehabilitation Center is doing excellent work and research for people who have spinal cord injuries. And so, and there are lots of other programs out there as well. But I think you just telling your story and letting people know you're 14 years into this, and you still live life, and you can still have a family, and there's still someone out there who will love you, and there's still jobs you can train for. There's all types of vocational programs out there for people who want to get back to work or drive again. You have been driving for many years now. Probably close to 10 you've gotten back to driving. Either way, you were determined to drive again, and so you made that happen. And so just encouraging people that there are all types of programs out there to help you get back to work, to help you start driving again, to equip your vehicle, to make it accessible to you. And so don't give up. Don't give up. Where there's a will, there is a way. And just get into a support group if it's possible, and surround yourself with family and friends who love you and believe in you and want to see you succeed.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today. I so appreciate your time. I want to thank my special guest, my first guest, Mr. James Odom, for sharing just a little bit about his experience and his journey thus far. And just a reminder to all of you who continue to listen, you can always support the podcast as well. There's always a link that you can click to show your support financially. Whatever you decide to give is always appreciated, and it just helps ensure the publishing of future episodes. Again, I hope all is well with everyone. Until next time, be well.